This is one of those stories that sounds like it's pulled from fiction. It's a story of impossible odds, absolutely brutal winners, and the one man who had to navigate his nation through the darkest days of the 20th century. We're about to dive into a masterclass in survival, so let's get right into it.
You know, for the soldiers on the ground, that's not just some poetic line. Snow buries armies. It swallows nations whole. And in the winter of 1939, it was the backdrop for a war that, by all logic, should have been over before it really even began.
You've got the Soviet Union, this absolute titan of a nation, sending its enormous military machine crashing through the frozen forests. And they were expecting a quick, clean, brutal victory.
And in its path? Finland, a small country, totally isolated, with no powerful friends to call on. They were facing the bone-chilling reality that they had absolutely no second chances.
The defense of the entire nation, its very existence, basically rested on the shoulders of one single man. And his story, well, it brings up a question that still echoes through history today.
So in this epic clash, this real-life David and Goliath showdown, what was really at stake? And maybe more importantly, could one person, just one, really be the difference between survival and complete annihilation?
All right, let's get right to the heart of it. Could this one man, Carl Gustaf Mannerheim, actually save Finland? As you're about to see, the answer is a whole lot more complicated than just a simple yes or no.
You know, the incredible irony of Mannerheim's story is that he wasn't some homegrown Finnish nationalist. Not from the start. His journey began in a completely different world.
I mean, just look at this guy's resume. He was born into aristocracy, spent most of his life as a loyal officer in the Tsar's Imperial Army. He was a man of empire, not a Finnish rebel. It was only after that whole world, the Russian Empire, just completely crumbled that he chose Finland. And his first big act? Leading the anti-communist white forces in a vicious civil war that secured Finland's independence but left these deep, painful scars on the nation. So yeah, definitely not your typical storybook hero.
Okay, let's fast forward to 1939. The political storm that had been brewing in Europe finally breaks over Finland. Joseph Stalin demands Finnish territory. Finland says no, and just like that, the Winter War began.
I mean, just look at this. On paper, it's not a war, it's a massacre waiting to happen. The Red Army was gigantic, relentless, and looked absolutely unstoppable. So how could Finland possibly survive? Well, Mannerheim's genius was understanding that wars aren't fought on paper. They're fought in the mud, and in this case, in the snow.
Instead of foolishly meeting the Soviets head-on, the Finns turned their terrain itself into their deadliest weapon. They didn't fight the entire Soviet army. They fought little, isolated pieces of it. They developed a strategy called the Madi tactic. They'd lure these huge Soviet columns deep into the forest, then they'd swoop in, sever their supply lines, and chop the columns up into smaller, manageable pockets, or Madi, and then they'd just destroy them one.
Can you even begin to imagine the terror for a Soviet soldier? You're trapped in this frozen hell. It's minus 40 degrees. Your machines are useless. You're starving. And then, out of the total white silence, Finnish ski troops appear, strike with deadly precision, and just vanish. They literally became ghosts in the snow.
But here's the brutal truth. Even heroism has its limits. The sheer crushing weight of the Soviet Union's numbers was just too much. By 1940, Finland's defenses were cracking, and Mannerheim, well, he was facing a truly impossible choice. He wasn't chasing some glorious, impossible victory that would get all his men killed. He was a realist. He saw the situation for what it was, so he advised the government to sue for peace. It was a decision that meant losing territory, but it also meant preserving Finland's independence. It was a bitter, bitter pill to swallow, but it meant Finland would live to fight another day.
And that tightrope walk was far from over. Finland was caught between two brutal totalitarian powers, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. In 1941, they basically made a deal with the devil, aligning with Germany to try and reclaim their lost land from the Soviets. This became known as the Continuation War.
But let's be clear, this was a very calculated, very cautious alliance. Mannerheim was playing an incredibly dangerous game. He used Germany's help, but he absolutely refused to let Finland become another one of Hitler's puppets. The Finnish forces famously halted their advance right at the old borders, refusing to help with the horrific siege of Leningrad. Mannerheim knew the mortal danger of winning the wrong war.
Then, in 1944, as Germany was collapsing, Mannerheim became president. And his to-do list was, well, it was monumental. He had to somehow negotiate a separate peace with Stalin,
turn on his German allies and kick them out of the country, and do all of that while making sure Finland didn't end up occupied by the Soviets. I mean, a single mistake, one misstep, would have meant total destruction.
And the incredible thing is, he pulled it off. Finland actually fought a third war, the Lapland War, this time to drive out their former German allies. When all the smoke finally cleared, Finland was battered and bruised for sure, but it remained independent and democratic. So, what does all this mean for our big question?
So, did he? Did Mannerheim truly save Finland? Or was he just a master pragmatist? A guy who understood the cold, hard realities of power better than anyone else, and maybe got a little lucky.
You know, he wasn't a warmonger chasing after battlefield glory. He was a survivor. He made the unpopular, deeply painful decisions that others were afraid to even consider, to sue for peace, to align with the devil, and then to fight that same devil, all for one single goal: keeping his country alive.